истинный в огне. Кто читает свои сны, поклоняюсь темноте.
Day 1. The Storm. I know what you're expecting. You'd probably be thinking about some kind of hellfire storm of biblical proportions. No. Hell came in such a way that none of you reading this could imagine possible. Officially, this never happened, but you must know the truth. First off, my name's Ryan Glasgow, and these events I'm about to retell happened nearly 8 years ago now. I lived in a small town in northwestern Montana called Libby. The scenery was everything you could want from a town situated in the Rockies. There was beautiful mountain terrain with lush pine forest and winding rivers and streams all across the surrounding area. My father had moved back to Libby after serving in the U.S. Army for a decade. He had met my mother when he was in college at Penn State University, and she was more than happy to come back to his childhood home with them. Before I was born, he and my mother opened a local grocery store as a family business. But my father was more often than not away at his construction job in Kalispell, about an hour and a half away. He was a man who believed in becoming financially sound before having any children. When my parents were in their early 30s, I was born as the eldest of 3 children. 2 years afterwards, my mother gave birth to twins, my brother Graham and my sister Cynthia. We were always a happy family, content with our way of life. My father's construction supervision job always supplemented us with a healthy amount of disposable income, most of which they would put into savings. It wasn't until January 17th, 2011 that our lives would forever be changed. It was on that morning I woke up to begrudgingly prepare myself for another humdrum day of school. I moseyed to the bathroom directly across the hallway from my room to take my shower for the day. I contemplated how my calculus class might put me to sleep that day as I toweled myself dry and put on my jeans and long-sleeve t-shirt. My morning routine summoned me to the kitchen where I toasted and buttered a bagel for my morning sustenance. Walking into the living room, I noticed my father and mother each watching the local news while drinking their morning cup of coffee. It was rather strange that they were still home 7:45, which happened to be only 15 minutes before the grocery store was due to be opened. My father had his eyes focused so intensely on the TV, I was surprised there wasn't a hole burned into the screen by his gaze. I wondered what could have him so interested in the news. Nothing interesting ever happens in Libby, so I decided to take a seat on the couch and watch with my parents. The meteorologist on screen was dressed in a neat, all-black suit with a white undershirt. His slick-back hair shimmered in the lights, revealing that he had likely used too much hair gel in preparation for his morning. Finally, I actually paid enough attention to hear him say, "So only travel in an emergency. All businesses and schools in the northwestern region of the state are advised to be closed down until the storm passes." "What's he talking about, Dad?" I asked my father curiously. He blew softly on his still steaming coffee and took a sip before answering. "Just take a look outside, son." I drew back the curtains to be met with what I can only describe as pure white. Nothing beyond the window was visible unless you wanted to view the copious amount of snow falling from the sky. There was plenty of that to see. What the meteorologist had said now took full effect in my mind. No school? Fantastic! I knew what I was going to spend my day doing. I sprinted down to our basement to already see the TV and spare heater on. When I saw the screen displaying the wonderful and cruel but hilarious world of South Park, I knew it was my 16-year-old brother, Graham, that was already up, This made my chances of what I now planned for the day skyrocket. "Hey Graham," I said as I entered the room. He whirled around on the couch, his steely blue eyes that we all shared as a family, looking at me startled, yet happy to see me at the same time. Graham knew what time it was. Ever since our favorite game for the Xbox 360 came out in the fall of 2010, we had made it our tradition to play it whenever we had a day off of school. "Took you long enough," Graham teased. "Is it time?" I asked him excitedly. "Hell yeah, I've had the thing booted up for about 15 minutes waiting for you to finally come down here," Graham replied as he swiped the TV remote from the coffee table. I watched as he flipped through the inputs until he finally got to the Xbox 360's home screen and tapped the A button on his controller to start up the game. The loading screens graced our ears with some of the marvelous musical compositions of Martin O'Donnell as we eagerly awaited the title screen. After about another minute of waiting, a title screen reading Halo Reach appeared on the TV. We decided to play through the in-game campaign on legendary difficulty for some fun, but rage-inducing gameplay. As the countdown began, we heard the front door upstairs slam shut. I thought nothing of it at the time because I was now enthralled with the Halo universe for what seemed like the umpteenth time in my life. We pushed about halfway through the in-game campaign when the power finally went out. Naturally, my brother and I became pretty pissed over it, having our fun cut short. The basement began to grow cold as the frigid temperature from outside our house crept in. Graham was the first of us to dash upstairs. He was always impatient when things went south. As I climbed my way to the top of the stairs, I overheard my mother and Cynthia talking in the kitchen. "You can't be serious, Dad actually went out?" Cynthia screamed worriedly. "Dad's gonna be fine. He was in the army for 10 years, so he would know a thing or two about surviving out there. Besides, you should be grateful that he did go. He's getting us extra supplies from the store for us to make it through this," my mother replied soothingly as she started to stroke my worried sister's long, curly, blonde hair. "I hope he makes it back before we get snowed in," I said, reaching the top of the stairs. It seemed as if my statement had become law as we heard the loud engine of my father's SUV once it pulled into the driveway. Graham must have heard it too. He raced past us and bolted out the door to help my father carry in supplies. My mother, Cynthia, and I quickly followed suit to finish the job as fast as possible. 15 long, freezing minutes later, our entire kitchen was filled to the brim with food, toiletries, and other miscellaneous supplies we would need to survive the next few days. But we weren't done yet. My father told us to take everything we could carry to the basement with us. He walked towards the bedrooms, presumably to snatch up extra blankets to keep us warm and pillows to make sleeping in that room more comfortable. My mother carefully descended the shadowy staircase first, followed by Graham, then Cynthia, and myself bringing up the rear. She ambled to the middle of the dark room in front of the now dead TV screen, which had been filled with my brother and I spilling Covenant blood only an hour earlier. What our mother did next, none of us could have possibly understood at the time. She set the supplies she had carried down to the basement aside and knelt down in front of the orange oval rug that sat neatly in front of the TV and pulled it away to reveal a large steel trapdoor I had only seen a couple of times before. I had seen my mother and father take the plunge to do God knows what down there. She opened the trapdoor to further reveal what looked like the entrance to a bunker lit by dim red lights. How could these lights be on? It was impossible. Unless my father had stowed some sort of generator in this bunker. But why would we need a bunker? I understood that my father was a military man, but something wasn't adding up. There had to be a reason. It's not like people would try to loot our house. Our town was too small for that. Whatever the reason may be, I was happy that we at least had some kind of failsafe in case of emergency. Ryan, could you go down first? We'll drop everything that won't break down to you. My mother asked me with a tone so sweet, I could do nothing but obey. The descent was easily a solid 10 to 15 feet down. I called up to my family once I had reached the bottom. Their response was dropping down various food items, which I would quickly place in the vast space on either side of me. This room was large. Too large. Again, something seemed very off. My father's heavy footsteps grew louder as he entered the room above with a mass of blankets and pillows. He threw some down to me, while giving some to my mother and siblings, as well as taking the remainder of the mass of bedding down himself. With everyone assembled in the spacious room, my father flipped a switch and more of the same dim, red lights that guided our way to this room flickered to life. He climbed back up the ladder to the top and shut the trap door with a resounding thud, after which various locks clicked into place. He was keeping us locked in here. After a few hours of explaining the various floors and amenities offered by the bunker and why it was here, I was finally satisfied with my new living quarters. In the back left corner of the room sat a computer that appeared to be showing many security cameras placed throughout the house upstairs and in the basement above us. As far as I could see, we were completely snowed in. No way in or out of the house. However, we could still see outside from the rooftop camera that only showed the immense snowfall for now. The nagging questions persisted in my mind. Why is all of this here? What could we need it for? The answer to those questions would have to wait. My father instructed us to take everything we had brought down here with us further down to what he called Sub-Level 2. Sub-Level 2 was where, essentially, an exact replica of our home on the surface resided. Every minor detail was perfectly replicated. How could my parents afford all this? There had to be some explanation, but I was content on going to my new room and making myself comfortable to enter slumber. When I walked into my room, there was another computer with the same display as the one on Sub-Level 1. I noticed that the time now read 7:28 p.m. Another peculiarity was that the screen computer monitor read audio on. All I could hear was the utter silence outside and the occasional gust of wind. I checked the rooftop camera and could faintly see what looked like a few people dressed in heavy winter gear wandering our street. They looked like they were on a mission. About 2 blocks down from our house was an Albertsons grocery store, not the store my parents owned. These people were probably on their way to loot it for supplies to last them the rest of the way through the storm. I had to commend them for their courage. It takes guts to put your life on the line, even if you have no other choice. The camera's view became obstructed when a massive gust of wind blew. Snow completely covered the feed on the computer's monitor. There went my entertainment. Without anything else to do, I did the only thing that made sense. I went to bed to enjoy slumber's sweet embrace. But before I was completely out for the night, I could have sworn I heard people's blood-curdling screams from the computer speakers. I thought it was just my mind welcoming me to dreamland, so I thought nothing of it. Finally, I drifted off.